Good morning to one and all. Hope all of you are safe at home. I welcome you all on behalf of Sri Kannika Parameshwari Arts and Science College for this FDP on promoting research and innovation in higher education of India, teachers' role. It is my pleasure to welcome you all on behalf of our college, and it is my duty to thank our correspondent, sir, Sri Gugilam Ramesh, our principal, Dr. T. Mohanasri, and Vibrant two vice principals. And it is my indeed my pleasure to thank and introduce our resource person, Dr. B. Purna. Ma'am, achievements are countless, but to mention, because of time constraint, I'm mentioning only few. Ma'am has 30 plus years of academic experience, and she has been the former Senate member of University of Madras. She had served as controller of examination for Deemed University for 4 years, and ma'am has served as principal principal for an arts and science college for 7 years, and ma'am has served as an uh, sorry. She guided six PhD students for their doctoral degree, and five of them obtained their PhD degree successfully. And I am very proud to say I am one among that five. I am very blessed to have ma'am as my research supervisor, and ma'am has published 40 international journals and presented 5 papers in international conference. She has been the member of Executive Council of NAC since December 2018, and ma'am has published 2 books. Her vision is to be part of building an institution that produces students with high moral values and to provide holistic education along with academic, uh, adding more value to sports, arts, and other value addition and other social awareness concepts. And to create a completely digital campus with a conducive ambience for teaching and learning to make the learning experience smooth. I stopped up to this, and madam, now I request your good self to take over this session. Once again, thank you all for.
Good morning, dear participants. I hope you are able to hear me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So it is a real pleasure to connect back with the teachers, especially with Kannika Parameshwari, maybe because my students are there and they are giving me an opportunity to be with the teachers, which I have stopped almost since January 2021. This effort today is just like taking the horse to the pond. You are all here with a minimum experience, say starting from 1 year to some of you may even have 15-20 years of experience. You already have set your thought process in a particular direction as a teacher, and you must be pursuing your career on your understanding of what a teacher is. Now we are at a cross juncture where we need to really analyze a few concepts of higher education itself, in which research is forming a primary part. I will just share my screen. Yeah. So the idea here is just to let the participants know that we are a little behind in terms of so many aspects of higher education, be it the requirement of the country or the global presence of higher education of India. So here I'm just sharing my concern as to how we can improve our role as a teacher and what research actually means to us as teachers. And the most important thing, how to involve the students in research, because many of our students just come, take a degree. They are also clueless what they should do after they complete their degree, which could be about 3 years or 4 years. We are not in a very strong position to guide them what they are supposed to do, because we are already trying to work on what we should be doing. So we seem to be in a state which I can always say we are in a fluid state, and we have a lot of responsibility to channelize and ensure that we are doing the right thing for the student community. This is where I thought I will quickly go through two aspects. One is how research can be done by the teachers and what is relevant to the country today. The another aspect is how you can involve, because many of us are working in undergraduate institutions, how we can involve our undergraduate students to be part of the research. So I have just made it for two kinds of presentation. The first one is on what is the teacher's role. I think I'm not able to move my slide. Sudha, can you help me? I'm not able to move my slide.
Shall I share, ma'am?
Oh.
Yes, ma'am.
So as Sudha is trying to help me do the slide, I will
Yes.
just go ahead with the presentation. I would like you to move on to the first slide. My concern is I have just talked about what is higher education in India. It is just any education that is obtained by an individual after 12 years of schooling. This is where higher education is defined. And what is the expected outcome of an higher education? You should develop good, thoughtful, well-rounded and creative individuals. And it must also enable an individual to study one or more specialized areas of interest at a deep level, and also develop character, ethical and constitutional values. So we are talking about so many things, of which we are concentrating only on maybe trying to help them get some specialized knowledge on a particular subject at a deep level. But it is much more than that. We should be able to develop their character, ethical and constitutional values, intellectual curiosity, scientific temper, creativity, spirit of service, and 21st century capabilities across a range of discipline. So this is what is defined as a higher education. And now adding the word quality to it, a quality higher education must enable the personal accomplishments and enlightenment, constructive public engagement, and produce contributions that will be helpful to the society. It must prepare students for more meaningful and satisfying lives and work roles and enable economic independence. So this is with regard to what is a higher education, what is the quality of higher education. So what is the challenges that we are facing in higher education today? We have a range of problems. It could be income problem, gender disparity in enrollment, quality of faculty, and even to a large extent, lack of motivation and interest among students. Now, industries cite skill shortage as one of the reasons. Now, when it comes to industry citing it, we have a situation where the growth and the development at the industry side is phenomenal. We are now in a phase that is called Industry 4.0. Whereas in terms of the education, we are in education 2.0. Ma, is this slide உங்களுக்கு மூவ் பண்ண முடியலையா சுதா?
இல்ல ma'am, I'm waiting for.
Oh, எனக்கு it will be comfortable if I can do it. I don't know why I am not able to do it. Yeah.
Shall we try one more time?
Is this yours?
Ah, yes, ma'am.
Fine. Can we try one more time?
Ah, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I will start, ma'am.
Hmm.
Yes, ma'am. I start, ma'am.
Yeah, I think now it's working.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just defining what a higher education is. What is education 4.0? Because education 4.0 is really relevant here, because as far as industrial development is concerned, we are in industry 4.0, where we have crossed the stage, and we are in a modern world using a lot of cyberspace, cybernetics, robotics, nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, automation, and so on. But with regard to education, we are not able to provide education to that requirement in a prevalent way. Maybe in some institutions we are able to do it, but the sorry state of affairs is we are still offering it, because I'm doing it with specific reference to computer science. We are still teaching what I started teaching computer science, say about 30 years back. There is only a minimal change in what I can talk in terms of curriculum. But what is required here at education 4.0, where the learning is customized to students. I don't have to say much about how learning is defined today. It is, we have a curriculum, we have a syllabus, we have framed it into 5 units. We know it is about 45 hours or 60 hours. The teacher says, yes, I have completed unit 1. Yes, it is done. Does the student really understand? Are we taking into consideration the speed with which the student is able to understand? That remains a question. So we will have to customize learning to students. Students should determine how they want to learn, choosing from learning tools and pedagogy. So this is again important, because we are dealing with Generation Z students who are always on the internet and Wi-Fi, whereas a few of us teachers are still to even get into that area of using technology. Students should play a very big role in framing syllabi and curriculum. They should become more independent with self-study. And these are all some of the characteristics of education 4.0. And the future of education 4.0 is the role of teachers is going to be more of facilitator and enabler. It will require a massive transformation in the approach of the teachers now. Why I am going through all this is your research now has to have this in the background. You will have to look into what the student wants, what the country wants, and not what you want to give from the syllabus. Today's learner does not need instructor-led education models, but wishes to engage through multiple sources of knowledge. And also at the global level in academic circles, people are now discussing the need of shifting from quality culture to impact culture. Impact culture is very important, because educational institutions of the future must constantly work towards solutions for societal problems. So I am sure you will now understand what is expected and what is it we are offering. So there seems to be a huge gap. Teachers need to discuss such questions to the students: are why are you here? What are you trying to do? What does it mean to you to do it well? How the teacher can help? So this kind of an interactive style of education is what is required, and it will require gradual efforts from academic teachers and leaders. And at the policy level also, we need a lot of structural changes, because that part of it I cannot talk much. It involves the management, the funding people, the university, which actually provides the curriculum and the syllabus. So there is always a uncertain component on which we have no control. Now then again, going to new education policy makes sense when there is an education policy, say at least every 10 years. Now, if you look at our education policy in India, the last education policy was way back in 1986, where we had the system of 10 plus 2 plus 3, and it remains as 10 plus 2 plus 3. If I am correct, from 1980, 81, because we were all the first few students who moved from 11th PUC, and we all moved into the 10th, 10+1, 10+2. Nothing much has changed. Structure has not changed. Curriculum has not changed. So there is a concern, and the new education policy now talks about knowledge, wisdom, and character. It does not talk much about the subjects because the intentions now are different. Institutes of higher education through their curriculum are expected to provide knowledge, know-how, wisdom, and character to the students. Knowledge enables them to understand what they learn in relation to what they already know. So now this is, again, ask yourself, what is that I am doing in the class? Am I really delivering knowledge? That's a question. Now, what does the national education policy say about research? When it comes to research, you look at world development indicators that was published by the World Bank. India is a country that barely spends 0.6% to 0.7% of GDP on research. Whereas when you look at the other countries with which we normally compete with the other parameters, say Germany, US, China, Japan, they all spend anything between 3 to 4% of their GDP on research. So the first thing is we have less money being roped into doing research. We have other priorities, and even that 0.6 to 0.7% that we are using it for research, 45% of it is funded by the central government. Roughly about 42% is funded by the industry, and hardly 10 to 13% of it is the others. So of the total investment on research, the government spends most of it on space and defense research. So normally arts and science teachers do not have much of a role in playing into defense research or the space research. What the industry spends, say about 42%, they spend it on areas that is relevant to them, that makes their production cost or their maintenance cost less. So their concentration is only on those areas of research, and they get research done by their own set of R&D department, and the people from the education sector is not directly involved in it. So again, what we do as research in higher education institutions are very much away from application. It is very much away from the industry requirement, and the country spend also is not on higher education is the current scenario. So what is it that is happening is India has been poorly performing in having patents to its credit. We all know what I mean by a patent. Not much of a pattern has been produced by Indians. Now, what we try to do is whenever there is a pattern, we try to associate ourselves with them, saying, he was an Indian, he was a born Indian. Like we normally do, we are so happy and proud that Kamala Harris is a Tamil. But what has Kamala Harris do to do with the India and Tamil? There is nothing she has to do with it, because she is not a born Indian. For some reason, her mother is an Indian, and we take pride only in saying this person was an Indian. So I am talking only about resident Indians. The patent that has been filed by resident Indians is very, very negligible. There is inadequate involvement of industry and the higher education sector, as well as the lack of collaboration between these entities and the government in actively promoting R&D. So now what is it? So this is one area of research where we have less funding. There is less cooperation between people who really need to do research, and academic research has become more of a theoretical research. It is not application oriented. It does not do much to society. It does not do much to the industry to improve its performance. So there seems to be academic research that is an island of its own. That is how we are all working on the academic research. Now, when we look at what we do, this is one part of it, the funding and who is involved in doing research. The other one is how do we as teachers spend our time in a day that is very, very minimal with regard to research. We are spending most of our time in doing a lot of administrative work, and less of time is devoted to research, if we can say. So now with this in mind, what has happened here is I'm just showing you a slide where the R&D expenditure in India as compared to other countries. You look at the orange bar there, it is 0.6, 0.7%. It ranges only in that. And look at what other countries are doing. They are spending time, money, and they have a team that works exclusively on research. So the new education policy has now come up with a National Research Foundation that will cultivate and grow research culture right from school to HEI. See, the situation here is we are talking about higher education institutions, but all this, if I can say, the research spirit or the skill has to be inculcated right from the schooling. So you should seed, cultivate, and grow research culture right from school. The fund competitive peer-reviewed grant proposals of all types. The National Research Foundation is planning to do all this and act as an umbrella organization between researchers, HEIs, funding departments of governments. So there is someone called the National Research Foundation. It is something similar to NAC. It will be an autonomous body. They will try to connect the researchers, the higher education institution, the funding departments, so that there is something meaningful that will happen in the years to come. Now, this is what we will be talking today. The academic research and the industrial research is, academic research is theoretically focused. You just make the findings public. Access to through nammaloda research one, it stops with a theoretical concept. You ask a question, you find answer for the question. You have data which is called the primary data and the secondary data, and most of us work on the secondary data. Secondary data is data that is already available and we don't go to the source. And this is primarily through academic writing. So if you write 2-3 papers in referred journals and it is accepted, your research is over. After some time, if someone is going to ask us, what is that you did? We may not be even able to substantiate our work. So this is where our academic research stands. Now, when it comes to academic research, it is just a few steps. Clarify what is the problem, develop research questions. For hypothesis, we write an hypothesis, we prepare a questionnaire, we get the answers for the questions, identify keywords, understand basic research testings, and then we start doing the research. This is what academic research. It is based on the work of others is one. It is replicable and it is doable. It is generalized. It is based on some logical rationale and tied to theory. This is what is my emphasis. What we do in academic research is only theory. It is incremental. What do I mean by incremental? Somebody does a research, there is an open problem in that paper, and the last conclusion, we take those 2 lines, try to elaborate on it, find something. It could be a different mathematical model, or it could be on a different data set, and our research is over. So this is what our academic research normally is. But even there, when you look at research, you will see that there are a number of types. It is not independent of each other. We have primarily what we do in academic level, quantitative research, qualitative research. Quantitative research basically is to do with a lot of data. Qualitative research is primarily exploratory. And now look at the flowchart that I have given you. Exploratory research is quantitative research. So they are all connected with each other. We will be doing our research based on some of these objectives and methods, and we will come up with a conclusion. So a qualitative research is primarily exploratory. Quantitative research is used to quantify the problem. So again, there it is connected to the primary data or the secondary data. One major handicap in what we do as a research is we are not very good risk takers. Say, for example, if I want to explore something new, I fear to invest my money and time. We are happy in investing our money to pay so many people, to pay people to write our thesis, to pay the journals that publish our results. But we do not want to take the risk of trying something new and failing. So this is generally the attitude of us as teachers. So what happens, our research is basically oriented towards, if I can say, getting a PhD degree. What we do as a research is this: writing and research strategies. We are more towards writing a journal paper and our work ends there. Whereas doing a research that can be application oriented is much, much, much different, where we are confining ourselves to case study, literature research. We do a couple of interviews, we may do a couple of survey polls depending on the subject and the research area that we are working on. And we are not going in depth in what exactly the outcome will be used for. So here we have a problem. We are not concentrating on either the industry requirement or the society requirement. So the research remains as a theory on a published referred journal, and beyond that, it doesn't see the light of having been used by someone in the society. So this is what is the problem of our research. And this is something that many of you would be happy to accept. What is our reality? This is one serious problem of all of us. Academic practice is pathina. What is the maximum time used by us? Class preparation, I am sure people will accept that. And look at the, what is the one that has got a long line there? Meeting. I am talking this in the capacity of being a teacher way back in, say, 1988, 89, and I have been teaching. When you look at them, I have never seen many meetings happening at that point of time. Almost every teacher used to spend time in preparing, going to the class. Research also was not talked much about at the students level, but most of the time of the teacher was spent in having direct contact with the teachers. This is how our teachers taught us. Now look at what we are doing now. We attend a lot of meetings. We do a lot of appraisals. We'll have to appraise ourselves. We'll have to appraise our neighbor. We'll have to be appraised by our superior. Now this is another February, March fever that everybody does. I don't know why. What happens at the end of the appraisal is a totally different question. And administrative work takes much of our time. We are busy doing a lot of letter writing. We are busy doing housekeeping. We are busy also doing a lot of phone calls. So at the end of it all, look at the research admin and the research development. It is less than 5% of our time that we spend on research. This is what is the status. So what is expected is teaching is 59%, research 18%, service is 23%, but this is not actually what is happening. And for that to happen, it will take much more time. So the situation now is we are really worried about what is not happening. And when it comes to it, there is another serious problem that we need to really look at is the plagiarism part of it. Many of us now are getting into this problem of plagiarism where we present someone else's work or ideas as our own with or without consent. Is it right? Yes, it is right, but it cannot be a new research. By incorporating it into your work without full acknowledgement, and all published and unpublished material, whether in manuscript, printed or electronic form, should have some kind of an acknowledgement in case we make use of others' work. And making use of others' work can only be to help us identify our research problem. We cannot do the smart job of Control-C, Control-V, all that kind of a complete content copying. This again boils down to our attitude to research or our attitude to life. We need a lot of ethical. When it comes to ethics, it is a personal one. I'm not talking about the value base. Value base is something that is defined for all human beings. What I am talking about is your personal ethics. You should tell yourself, define, refine, and tell yourself, I will not cross lines. One time you cross the line, because we have a responsibility that we are now going to take this to the students. So unless we have clarity on what we want to do as research, what is our aim as a research, is it just getting a PhD or just writing papers in referred journal, or are we going to take it further? Yes, it requires that we take it further, because the framework is strictly telling us you can't just stop with getting a degree. Earlier days, once you get a PhD degree, most of the time your job ends there. But today, every year, there is a requirement that you continue to publish papers. So when it comes to it, a research, once it begins, it will be part of a teacher's life, and you cannot stop it anyway. This is what the point here is. Whatever I am saying may not be new to you all, but the only difficulty I have been seeing in all these years is we refuse to accept our role as a teachers, where our learning cannot end. Our learning, because whatever the curriculum says, the student is ahead of us. He has already done a lot of research. He has got other sources of where he can get information for the curriculum or the syllabus. So the student is not coming to the class to hear to what you have to say on things that he already knows. He is coming to the class to know things that he may have to do in future. So it becomes a very, very serious requirement for us. We should be ahead of our students in terms of what we know in a particular area. We may not be strong in the subject per se, but you should be able to put your student in the right path and say these things are available. So having an awareness for our own selves as a teacher and creating an awareness for the students, both of them matter. Now I cannot say, okay, I am happy, I have got a degree, so I am all well versed. No, it doesn't end there. Unless you keep kindling the student's mind, your research does not serve any purpose. Involving your student to be part of your research is another important thing, where your student has to understand that this is not what is taught in the class, this is something more. Here, the question that we are talking about here is, we have a requirement. We have a requirement where, in addition to doing a research, how to involve the students to do the research. How can the students be part of our research? Unless otherwise the research interest is made available and kindled in the students, the research ends abruptly. So I have a concern here, where how do the students become part of the research? Now, when it comes to doing part of the research, there is another requirement. I have a class of 70. Not all the 70 are interested in research, because we know out of the 70, 50 of them will just take a degree and go. Beyond that, on that degree, if they get a job, they are happy, and the job may or may not be relevant to their degree. Say, for example, I have done a BCom, I might be doing a job in a call center. What has that BCom to do with the call center? Neither the student knows, nor the call center fellow knows. He has his own requirements of skills. He says you should talk in this English, and he will give you a new name. You may not be even known by your own name, and the job ends. So out of the 70 in a class, hardly you will have 4 to 5 students, hardly 4 to 5 students who might really have an inclination, who might really have some curiosity. They may also have some interest in doing something new which is outside the curriculum. So the requirement of the teachers now is, how do I identify such a student? In a class, I fully agree and understand, accept that you do not have the time to do all this, but the today's education policy clearly gives a guideline that the time of education has to be flexible. It cannot be 5 hours into 6 days, 30 hours per week, that kind of a model is no longer going to work. We need to have a flexible model. Students and teachers should be able to connect with themselves, maybe practically to, now don't scold me, because 24 மணி நேரம் if I'm going to sit with the student, what happens to my family? Yes, I understand. That is why many of the performing higher education institutions have been residential institutions. There are higher educational institutions which demands that if you are going to work with us, say for a duration of 3 years, 5 years, you will have to put your personal requirements to the backseat. These are all very far-fetched for many of us, but again we can definitely do a compromise. We need to devote more quality time to the students. We should be able to identify and group the students, not to discriminate them, but to have better output. When it comes to discrimination, I am not asking you to say, oh, this boy is not up to the mark, this person is very intelligent. That discrimination is not we are trying to do here. We need to group them so that people who have higher IQ, we give them a different set of problems. Students who are finding it difficult to cope up with the education, you stop them with their, help them to get a degree. So there is a huge difference, and our role and the responsibility now is different. Teachers cannot simply go to the class and say, okay, today we will start here, we will end here. And I have seen many of my teachers in all these years, they will not even have a clarity on why they are talking a particular subject, and suddenly when the bell goes, along with that student, the teacher also ends and goes. No, this is not what we are looking at in case of a higher education. Research has to be a component of even the UG education. So here I am just trying to give you a quick model. This quick model will help you to identify what you are good at. See, now we have the responsibility of helping our students identify what they are good at. When you do this exercise that I'm going to explain to you in the next couple of minutes, the first thing is you will try to do it on your own self. This is not compulsory, but this is necessary for two reasons. One is this is going to keep you happy. Two, it is going to help you identify what you are good at. The next the point is, when you try to apply it in the class, you will be able to identify your students who will be really interested in research. Bring them to your research work. When they come to the research work, they need not do research. Let them start with even typing your document. Now, when it comes to it, don't use the students as your secretary. That's again a difference. Take them along with you. Give them small work that they can understand and that will keep their interests high. Because in generation, we always say generation Z students, their attention span is much, much less. When we were studying, we had an out-to-out 1 hour of class will be one period, and you will be surprised the teacher will be able to hold your attention for all the 60 minutes, and the attendance taking was not a big role, because it was the responsibility of the student to be inside the class before the teacher. This was the quality of education we had way back some 20-25 years back. But today we are bringing down the class duration from 1 hour to many of the colleges have only 40-45 minutes. And out of the 40-45 minutes, I am pretty sure 5 minutes will go only in taking the attendance. 5 minutes will go off with the student. Sorry, I'm just talking about the teacher just keeping quiet, waiting for the bell to go. So effectively, the teacher is engaging the class only for 30 minutes, and not to blame, because even the attention span of the student has come down. So I would request the teachers to do this exercise that I will be presenting to you. Try this, do it, and if you are convinced this will help you, do it in your class. So when we reopen, or maybe now you are already doing a lot of online classes, you try to identify what is your student good at. Now, once you do this exercise, you will be able to identify at least 2 students you are handling, who will be able to be part of your research. Now, what is this exercise? It is a beneficial practice in career growth, because like your own passions and needs and what the world needs, this helps you to tell you together what is the reason and purpose of having got into teaching as a profession. Whenever we say we are born, I'm not again going into spiritual things, we always talk about what is the purpose of my life. Yes, we are born. What is the purpose of life? We are not spending time to think of all this. Our day begins in the morning. We just quickly go to the college. We have again, say 3-4 periods. We quickly rush through the 3-4 periods. In between, we have a lot of time to feel sorry about what we are not able to do. And then the day comes to an end. And if there is a call from the principal office asking us to extend it by another, say, half an hour, we are all done with it. And we are all, maybe most of us are unhappy at the end of the day. When you go home unhappy, the next day again, we come to the college with a little more unhappiness. And this cycle continues. So to break this cycle, the first point is, whenever you agree on something as a team, say, let us say we have 10 people who are discussing on what to do next, and some decision is taken. We are not happy about the decision. And we are always used to two kinds of decision making. One, majority wins, or two, the authority wins. Either way, we have taken a decision that we are not happy about. The primary thing that I'm trying to tell you is, having taken a decision, whether you are happy about it or not, give your full energy to do what has been decided. Again, I tell you, you may not be happy about what you are doing, but give it your full, so that there are two things that might happen. Whatever you do, it will happen better, or you will have the satisfaction of having put in your efforts. Now, why I'm saying this particular point is, having taken a decision, do not disagree and stop from putting your full energy into it. Now, if many of us have seen, the success story of Amazon goes only with this particular principle. They take a decision, however the decision has been taken, staff are encouraged to put in their efforts, put in their full energy for the decision taking without questioning. There is definitely, the output is going to be good. This is one thing that we need to really work on, because we have already become a teacher. The second thing is, you should ask yourself 4 questions. The exercise starts here. Ask yourself 4 questions. The first question is, what do I love to do? Whatever I love to do is defined as my passion. Now, what am I good at? See, what I love to do may not be what I'm good at. So what am I good at? What am I good at becomes your vocation. Passion is there, vocation is there. Many of us say, I might want to really be happily taking a lot of photographs and live my life and earn, but I may not be able to earn in that profession. So what can I be paid for? That is another important question in everybody's life. That is called the profession. And what does the world need is mission. So each one of us are having these 4 questions that we want to answer. What is my passion? What is my vocation? What is my profession? What is my mission? Now, any one person who can find out something common in all these 4, your passion, your vocation, your profession, and a mission, you will be a happy person. Sometimes we are not able to match what we love with what we need with what we are paid for, and what we are paid for we may not be good at. So that's why I've just shown you a small Venn diagram. Venn diagram is something that's easy to understand, and once you look at the center part of it, that is the common finding of yours. That is what is called, what is your ikigai. Now, when you find what is that is what you need to work on. And now, when coming to this concept called ikigai, it is very, very important, because many of the organizations are using this model to recruit their students. This is basically an idea from Japan. They are very good in giving new models for organizing and for keeping the premises clean, everything. They are all Japanese ideas, and we have no second opinion that Japan is a shade better than many of the countries in terms of human resource. So when I talk about this, Japan is a person who gave a framework for organization and cleanliness. Japan is the country that gave a model that applies small changes that result in major improvements over time. Their third concept is this, Ikigai. This is, it has relevance because before you do your research, find out what your Ikigai is. Now, once you do it, and the point to be noted here is this so-called Ikigai is variable. You cannot have the same Ikigai throughout your life till we die. Today, my passion is different. My requirements are different. Worldly requirements are different. What pays me is different. So now when you combine all this, as you evolve, this also might change. So the first Ikigai, it might take another 3 to 6 months for you to identify. Keep evolving. So as you grow, that also will change. This exercise will help you to identify if you and your students really have the research ability. If we do not have the research ability, maybe we can stop with just doing a research to get a PhD degree. Let's not break our head to go further. But if you really want to do meaningful research, find out if you really have in it. So when I talk about that, this is a small worksheet that you will have to do. There are 3 steps in it. Step 1 tells you, write in each column what is that you love, what are you good at, what are the world needs, what I can be paid for. In the random, you keep writing. This is not an exercise that we are going to do it in one day. Now go to step 2. Whatever is common in column 1 and 2 of step 1, you put it under passion. Whatever is common under column 2 and 3 of step 1, put it in the second column. Third one is whatever is common between the third and the fourth column, you put it in the third column. And when it comes to vocation, it is like your K-map, the fourth column and the first column, you will have to roll it down and see whatever is common and put it in the vocation. So this exercise, if you continue to do it for a few days, you will be able to identify for yourself what is your passion, what is your mission, what is the profession where you are working, and what is the vocation. Now, when you come to the step 2, again combine, and whatever is there common in passion, mission, profession, and vocation, that is your Ikigai. This is an exercise. I would recommend that every individual can do it, but very important for teachers to do it, because this helps you to really understand, to find, they call it as find your Ikigai, which will help you to improve your personal and career growth. Once you are confident that what is your Ikigai, you will be able to apply it to the students, and the research will turn out to be much better than what we are doing. So with these few points, I would like to take you to what I plan to do tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will have an introduction to what is meant by doing research at the UG level. A small framework I will propose, which can be used to involve students to do research. Then, in order to really work on the research, you need to develop your creativity, innovation, and critical thinking. No one can any longer escape the digital literacy, whether you are a botany teacher or a economics teacher or a computer, because it doesn't hold good that a computer teacher is good in digital literacy. No, a computer teacher is a teacher who has got some knowledge about theoretical concepts of computers, like a data structures or a database management system. That does not make them digitally literate. So digital literacy is something different. Every teacher should have a digital literacy. And when it comes to digital literacy, we will have to keep ourselves abreast of the technological development that is happening. There is something called a design thinking. And then when you combine your creativity, innovation, critical thinking, design thinking, along with your digital literacy, if you are going to do your teaching learning process centered around all these things, you will be able to make use of your research, pass it on to your students, because your research need not stop abruptly for want of people to take it forward. So with this input on what a research is, I am just coming to an end of the presentation today. If anyone has got specific questions, I would like to take it. And one thing is regarding the plagiarism, I would suggest that I can give you a few tips that you can use to avoid plagiarism. That is, you should read and understand the original document several times before you start explaining about it. Do not copy word or sentence from the original document. This is something everybody will be happy to know, because at the end of the day, the takeaway is what we should not do, because plagiarism can have serious consequences. So make sure you are not doing it. Give proper citation to all the sources. In case of citing online sources, include the accessed date and appropriate URL. And sometimes the URL will go away. So you should specify the date on which you really took that information. So you include accessed date and appropriate URL in the reference. Common phrases and definitions need to be quoted and cited without any modification. Double quotes laportative, we should give credit. Make a practice to include the references section whenever you write an academic document. Cross-verify all your citations. Take a plagiarism report from any one of the famous plagiarism software. You should be very careful, because supposing you use a particular software and you test your plagiarism percentage, if you use the same plagiarism again on the same paper, it will give 100% plagiarism. I think some of you must have encountered it. So you will have to be very careful when you do this. This is something that we need to worry about, where there are a number of types of plagiarism. Be very careful, don't fall into any of them. We have one kind of a plagiarism that says clone plagiarism, which is identical copying. Without any regard to change anything, just one person copies another work word to word. This is your clone plagiarism. There is another kind of plagiarism which is called remix plagiarism. Why I am telling you this? We are doing all this knowingly or unintentionally. So be very careful. Remix plagiarism is one person collects information from various sources and mix them all together as a single document, and then you will claim the work as your own work. Let me tell you, there are umpteen methods of finding out that it is a remix plagiarism. Another important one is which students are all good at, and we are not able to stop the student. We become so unhappy when a student does this, but then it happens because we are not seriously taking plagiarism. This is called the Control-C plagiarism, where a significant portion of the text is copied from any single source without any alteration. We have what is called hybrid plagiarism, that is perfectly cited source documents are copied and arranged as a new document but without citation. So உங்களுக்கு வந்து proper content இருக்கும், but you wouldn't have cited it properly. Then find and replace plagiarism. This is something that we are doing. Many of us do it consciously, which I would, because I have seen it as a research supervisor. Changing the most common keywords and phrases in the copied content and not making any changes in the essential document. This is find and replace mari. எந்த கீவேர்ட் எல்லாம் போட்டா நம்ம மாட்டிக்குவோமோ அதெல்லாம் ஃபைண்ட் பண்ணி அதோட சினோனிம் அந்த இடத்துல போட்டு we finish off the plagiarism. Be very careful, don't get into all this because we have a number of tools to identify such things. Then we have what is called recycle plagiarism. This is self plagiarism, the act of borrowing from one's own previous document. நம்மளோட ஒர்க்ல இருந்தே எடுத்து திருப்பி ஒரு 4 ஜர்னலுக்கு அனுப்பி விட்டுறது, recycle plagiarism. Then we have 404 error plagiarism. That is the most important type in the 404. Normally 404 error is error not found in normally when we work in the computer. This is by copying from various sources, prepare a single document with a citation. But if the citation is inaccurate or it does not exist, then it will be called 404. So அப்படியே ரொம்ப அப்படியே நேச்சுரலா எல்லாம் போட்டா when you really go back to find the citation will not be there. Another common kind of plagiarism that we do is aggregator plagiarism. The written document includes all the proper citation but does not contain the original work. Then it is called aggregator plagiarism. The last one, what we call it, is the retweet plagiarism. It seems perfect with properly cited mark, but still the document resembles somewhere the original text structure. And the ட்விட்டர்ல வந்துட்டு ஒருத்தர் ட்வீட் பண்ணவனே அதை எடுத்து ரீட்வீட் பண்ணுவாங்க. அதில் ஒன்றும் மாற்றமே இருக்காது, பட் இட் somewhere we try to put it as though it is your own original idea. So retweet plagiarism. These terms, why I am telling you is this plagiarism concept was not there earlier because many of them did not think of that. But once doing a research became compulsory and most of us did not have a research inclination, but it became mandatory, we started inventing new things. So when I talk tomorrow, I will talk to you about what kind of an inventions we have made in this. So I'll just give you 4 steps. Keep track of the sources you consult in your research. Paraphrase or quote from your sources and add your own ideas. Credit the original author in an in-text citation and reference list. Have a complete set of bibliography available. You have software. Create your bibliography so that you don't miss on any citations. Use a plagiarism checker before you submit. If you follow these steps, these are all the steps for most of us teachers to get a PhD degree. Tomorrow we will talk about how it can be taken to the next level, the students. So anybody who would like to ask me any questions, or we can end today.
Participants, do you have any questions?
And if possible, you can also get me a feedback on how useful it was. Was it useful, first of all? And then how useful was it? And if there is anything that you think was very primitive, because every day I continue learning and I will have to refine myself to do it better. My concern is whatever I have experienced. I had mentors and senior teachers right from 1980, even when I was a student, who really made education very interesting. And when I had an opportunity, I did not go to software primarily because of the impressions created by my teachers that teaching is a very good profession. So maybe I will call myself as a person who took to teaching as a passion. I did earn money out of it, so it became my profession. I kept on improving myself, and teaching, yes, it does have a societal impact. So even without knowing what all that ikigai was, I found a profession way back that was keeping me happy, because of which I would say my output and my happiness index was definitely better. So if teachers can take it more seriously and try to understand what your passion is, you will become a better researcher and a better teacher.
And shall I share the activity? activity link to all the participants.
Yes, ma. Yes, yes.
Mightly kindly send that link which I sent.
Yes, ma'am.
And participants, don't rush to do your Ikigai. Believe in it. Do it step by step. Take a few days. It may not be right in the first stroke, but definitely this exercise is worth doing.
Ma'am, I have a question, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I'm ready with the 3 journals, ma'am. Which plagiarism checker is safe to check, ma'am?
Plagiarism checker வந்து safe அப்படிங்கிறத விட it has got first implication is on the cost of the plagiarism check. One, most of the higher education institutions have been recommended to have this plagiarism check software at their institution. Whichever university you are going to submit, you should know what is the plagiarism software that university uses. You should understand, because that is, if we are talking in terms of submitting your research thesis, this would be a better one. Because I can keep quoting, when we wrote books, there was a plagiarism software called Turnitin. Turnitin
Yes.
is, yes, Turnitin
But
is,
it is for only institution. We cannot use it
Yes,
for
yes.
personal one, no,
I
ma'am.
had it done with the publisher who had taken it as his organization copy. It was pretty costly also.
Can we trust them, ma'am, the publishers? What level of trust, ma'am?
Yeah, what level of trusting வந்து today it is a question everywhere. What level of trust? Vaccine எடுத்துக்கலாமானே நமக்கு trust இல்லையே. So trustingகிறது வந்து you will have to go with someone whom you are comfortable with. That's all. The trust ends there. Beyond that, the word trust does not have any meaning in today's world. Because yesterday when I went for a vaccine, somebody asked me, oh, பரவாயில்லையே விவேக் செத்து போன பிறகு, that is 0.02. We are all good at statistics. That is 0.02% affect ஆகுதுன்னா, that alone has an impact in our mind, because our life is more important. So
Yes,
I was told yesterday that you are a brave heart. It was not brave heart. I just went by the statistics. 0.02%. I am not going to be part of the 0.02%. Simple. So trust is something that you will have to develop between two people on a personal level.
Some
I have people who stay closer to the university, who run data centers and do this. I think my students, we have discussed this enough. They will take your work and do this checking and all that. So I don't know whether they have any understanding or a written document that says they will not misuse it. I don't know whether there is any such kind of legal requirement.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Ma'am, good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Ma'am, I'm Lalita from CTD College.
Ah.
So my doubt is, actually, I'm a fan. Whenever I find your name as a resource person, I immediately register for that event.
Which department?
So my doubt is, okay, ma'am, how to bring the research for the UG students?
Yes,
that is my major problem.
Yes, that is the primary topic that I am addressing tomorrow.
Okay.
I am talking about a research skill development framework. We call it as RSDF. This research skill development framework has been adopted primarily from Western universities. I'm telling you the source, primarily from the Western universities, who have been identified as successful in involving the UG students in research. But you can't apply it 100% like that. But we can understand the framework, and as we normally say, retweet it to suit our requirement and apply it to the Indian scenario. But one requirement for all here is, if you are really serious about doing anything, you please convince yourself that you are practicing personal ethics. Unless otherwise, because no research sees the light unless otherwise we have a ethical foundation.
Okay, ma'am. Then one more question, ma'am. How to get project for the UG students, ma'am?
how to get project for the UG students. Projects, there are two things. One, normally the management sponsors.
Okay.
Or two, you have funding agencies, because that is one complete presentation. If you can, I will share it with the organizers, the list of funding agencies who give funds for student projects. There are a lot of people who are available in Tamil Nadu itself. They might give you a fund of 10,000. The money is not the problem, but always having to get a fund and doing it, the project will have value.
Yes, ma'am.
So
But
we will share.
will they give for the UG students, ma'am?
Even UG
Will
students,
they give
yes.
for the UG?
Yes, your project proposal should be convincing. I'm talking in terms of how it actually works. But number scenario, you may have to visit those funding people a couple of times. All that will be there. But if your project proposal is convincing, I would always say at the academic level, choose projects that will have a societal impact. And when it comes to society, choose projects that is relevant to the society in which you are currently placed. It should be the physical, geographical area of the institution. But நான் T Nagar காலேஜ்ல இருக்கேன்னா, whatever is the societal issues of in and around T Nagar will attract better funding. Or it should be problems or issues relevant to your place of residence. Unless it's like candidates who are standing for election, mannin maindargal mari adu. You will have to choose something that will really give the confidence to the person that yes, this person is trying to do something for the society in which he or she is residing. It is a process. You will have to make a couple of attempts before your project. And people who have taken admission in Western universities know how to write a statement of purpose. Why are you coming for this course? There will be a question. Your statement of purpose on many times has got you an admission. So you will have to keep refining, writing, rewriting till your project proposal becomes convincing for the funding agent.
Ma'am, one more question, ma'am. Sorry. You told me that you are giving your paper for publishing to some publisher. Can I have the name? Because you are trusting. No, that's why I'm asking.
See, this person, when we did our PhD, there was no plagiarism check at all.
Yes.
Because plagiarism was unfound at that point of time. Plagiarism is a recent concept. So our research thesis was not checked for it. The person to whom I had done it is when I wrote 2 books. It was textbooks and not reference books. It was specific for a particular syllabus. So when it came to that, the publisher who published my book did a lot of plagiarism check.
Oh. What about your research students publishing, ma'am?
Research students, I don't know where they did their plagiarism check, but they did take some help from the university in which I think they were working on.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
But time is the essence of research. If you slow down, there is every possibility that we may not be able to complete it, because every day there will be a new reason and a new excuse. So if your university permits you to do it in 4 years, you should ensure that you have everything available within 3.5 years. That is how a research gets completed. Otherwise, it will be 8 to 9 years of your work, and regulations will change, everything will change. University will end up putting more fine, and you become so frustrated. If you are anyone who is really interested in doing research, the first requirement is plan and have a timeline to finish. So today, 2021 April, if I register today, In 4 years, 2020-25, I should be submitting it. So work backwards and stick to that. Don't give yourself any extra time or excuse. All of you have family, all of you have responsibility, but these 4 years, you should not sleep. Unless we do that, you can't finish it on time. And I can always say that because I started my research in 1999, and I was waiting to submit it because university said you can't submit it before 4 years. This is how we need to work. You invest 4 years, then forget about your research. If you don't invest the 4 years, you will eternally be bracketed PhD waiting to complete.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, one more doubt, ma'am.
Mm.
If even though I put a reference number for a particular text, but in the plagiarism software, it shows under a plagiarism.
What did say citation அப்படின்னு சொன்னா you will take something from that paper and cite. You will not use it in your body of the paper. Correct? Am I
Okay.
right? So if you had given it as a reference, you would have given some numbers in the bracket which will have a bibliography. I don't think
Okay.
that will be throwing as a plagiarism. If you use the content from one paper in a location without proper double quotes or numbering, then yes, it will throw plagiarism. 30 வார்த்தைக்கு மேல ஒரு 30 words in a sentence, and if 60% of it, say about 18-20 words are the same, for sure it will throw plagiarism.
அடுத்து frame number, next PLM, next வந்து R, இந்த மாதிரி வந்து 5 different tuples வந்து நான் எடுத்துக்கிறேன். ஓகேவா? இந்த 5 different tuples வந்து நம்ம எதுக்காக யூஸ் பண்றோம் அப்படின்னு பாத்தீங்கன்னா, நீங்க என்ன பர்టిక్యులர் வீடியோ லைப்ரரி அப்படிங்கறப்ப we are having some set of different set of libraries available, different set of videos இருக்கும். In that particular video you are going to choose which particular video எதை வந்து choose பண்ண போறீங்க, அதுக்கான
யாரோ ஒருத்தர் வந்து ஆன்லைன்ல பேசுறாங்க.
content, அதுல இருக்கிற frames, அதோட sequences, அதாவது எவ்வளவு set of elements இருக்கு, அந்த frames எல்லாம் execute பண்ண போறீங்க. Next
ஐடென்டிஃபை பண்ண முடியாமா ஹோஸ்ட்க்கு? அவங்கள மியூட் பண்ணி விட்டலாம்.
அதுதான் மேம்.
ஒரு பர்టిక్యులர் வீடியோ மட்டும் நம்ம எடுத்துக்குவோம். இதுக்கு வந்து என்ன யூஸ் பண்றோம் அப்படின்னா, வீடியோ லைப்ரரியில பிட்லிப் அப்படிங்கிற லைப்ரரி யூஸ் பண்ணி அதுல இருக்கிற
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Radhika, you can propose your comment.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good morning to one and all present here. It is my immense pleasure to deliver the oath of the thanks for the day 1 of our FTP session. First and foremost, my special thanks to our resource person, Dr. P. Purana ma'am, academician, for making this session more interesting and meaningful and giving a lot of information about education. And I would like to thank my special thanks to our management, our honorary correspondent, Gugilam Ramesh, and our principal, Dr. D. Mohanishi ma'am, and vice principals, Dr. P.B. Vanitha and M.B. Napine for their constant support and encouragement. I also extend my sincere thanks to our Dr. A. Sudharam Kumar, Head Department of Computer Science, and my colleagues for their constant support and their encouragement. Last but not least, I thank our participants for various colleges for making the event a successful. I wish and pray for all to be safe and healthy. Tomorrow, we will meet again of our FTP Day 2 session. Thank you all. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma. Thank you.
Thank you. Participants, kindly take the activity sheet. It is image, you can take a printout or you can write it on your notebook and you can work on it in order to analyze you. Suppose if you want to use it for a student, you can do, as ma'am said. Now we change that restriction to public, so you can take that. Again, that link was posted in the chat box. Kindly take down if you are interested. Tomorrow the session starts at 9 a.m. and it will continue up to 10:15, maximum of 10:15 to 10:30. So kindly join with us on 9 a.m. tomorrow at 9 a.m. Thank you. Maitli, can you post the link again now?
Yes, ma'am.
Because so many messages are.